Well, good morning. My name is Aaron Bolin. I'm one of the public information officers for the Scottsdale Police Department, and the purpose of our news conference today is to announce the burglary arrests from basically over this weekend, and to talk about that today is going to be Chief Walther. Please understand he does have time to take some questions at the end, but also the investigation is still active. We are still in many ways in the early stages of the investigation, and so although arrests have been made, there's still a lot of work for our investigators and our forensics teams to do to make sure that we know what we need to know and see how these suspects could possibly be related to other cases. So we'll be limited on some of the information we can share about some of that because we just don't know some of that yet. Also, some of the answers to questions about some of the technology we're using and other investigative means obviously will also be very sensitive information that we may not share at this time. With that being said, I'd like to welcome up Scottsdale Police Chief Jeff Walther.
Thanks, Aaron, and thanks to all of you for being out here today. It's a big deal. Why? Because you really provide another conduit of communication to our community. And I don't mean the Scottsdale community, I mean the Valley community, the state community, and across the nation, because what we're going to talk about today in the South American theft group burglary series, or what we're calling dinner time burglary series, there's a number of different names for it, the Chilean burglary cruise. It's a big deal. It's impacting Scottsdale, it's impacting the Valley, it's impacting the state, it's impacting the country. And so I thank you here for being here to participate in sharing that communication medium out to everybody. I think it's that important to get that information out there. It's not lost on me, and I hope it's not lost on you, that this is the third time in as many weeks that I've been standing in front of you to talk about two big things that are really important to me and important to our community, and that is partnerships and technology. Aaron mentioned technology, and we'll get into that a little bit more on how we solve crimes, but those partnerships and that technology are really important. And again, 3 times that I've been in front of you in the last 3 weeks. The first time being in Surprise with my partners from Surprise PD, from Phoenix PD, from the Maricopa County Attorney's Office, from the Department of Public Safety, all there together talking about the Rod Al-Mansouri case and the technology and the relationships that we brought to bear to arrest that individual who was wanted out of New York City for homicide, and the city of Phoenix for stabbing, the city of Surprise for stabbing and attempted sexual assaults, and the technology and partnerships that we brought to bear during that case that prevented the same crime from happening at Scottsdale Fashion Square. It's that technology and those partnerships. Then I stood in front of you 2 weeks ago at our town hall meeting up in North Scottsdale to discuss this burglary trend and the now near 150 burglaries that have been plaguing the Valley, 35 plus of those in Scottsdale related to the dinner time burglary series. And in that discussion that had an amazing attendance from our community of nearly 3,000 or just over 3,000 people in person and online, and now that video that we took of the town hall has been viewed on our site more than 11,000 times, and on other sites more than 20,000 times, or segments of that. That's how important this is. And so as I stood before you in my community during that time period at the town hall, answering near 200 questions from the community, we made a commitment to each other. That commitment to each other, police and community together, to be vigilant. Right, to be vigilant about what was going on, to look out for one another, and that's what we've continued to do. And we had a period of rest. Sadly, that period of rest was about 2 weeks in between that town hall and the next burglary that took place in our city, which was this past weekend on Saturday. We had both a completed burglary and an attempted burglary, and the vigilance of somebody who was home, a homeowner that was there at their residence, who spotted these burglars and had the forethought and immediacy to start yelling at them before he called the police. That scared them off. That prompted a massive, massive response from Scottsdale PD and my partners, and I'll get into that momentarily. A massive response from us, from patrol, from detectives, drone operations, air assets from the Phoenix Police Department. And over the weekend, the Phoenix Police Department I'm going to give immediate kudos to Chief Mike Sullivan with the Phoenix Police Department and his Firebird air crews, Chief Ken Koss from Mesa PD and the Falcon aircraft and their crews, and Colonel Jeff Glover with the Department of Public Safety, and the Ranger air crews, which spent a good portion of the weekend with us and ultimately aided us in capturing these suspects. And so that partnership and that technology is incredibly important to bring to bear resources from multiple police departments from around the valley as we help one another try to solve some of these crime series. And so my great thanks to them. So we had that Saturday night. We threw a lot of assets at it. And again, I think I talked about in the town hall meeting that these are professionals. They're professionals. These are not some of our homegrown burglars that are breaking into residents to feed a possible addiction. But these are professionals. And let's be honest. All of you know that I've been in front of the cameras many times before, and I'm very honest about it. These are Chilean burglary crews that are coming to the United States on the Visa Waiver program, or what we call ESTA. And so these are no different. The arrests that were made by Phoenix PD nearly a month ago, those were the same. Those were Chilean burglary crews also coming to the United States on the Visa Waiver program. And so Saturday night we threw a lot of assets at the problem, and they disappeared. They were gone. Sunday, come into Sunday, and ultimately what we find is when I talk about technology, I think it's important, and I think Aaron talked about technology a minute ago, and so I think it's important that we talk about, when I'm talking about technology that we're bringing to bear, I'm talking about cameras. Let's just be honest with each other. I'm talking about cameras in a lot of different formats, right? Drones, aerial platforms, be they police helicopters or drones. I'm talking about fixed platforms. I'm talking about license plate readers. I'm talking about photo enforcement. I'm talking about a number of different fixed and mobile sites of cameras that we bring to bear. In Scottsdale, we're very fortunate. What we're bringing to bear right now is nearly 6,000 camera feeds into our real-time crime center. And so that's important when we talk about the idea of partnerships and technology to solve crimes, to prevent crimes, and to save lives. And that's what we did in the Rod Al-Mansouri case. We saved lives and we prevented crime. And that's what we did here on Sunday night when we got notification from one of our platforms, our technology platforms, of at least 2 people in the desert. And so we immediately responded to that information that we got. That was at about 8 o'clock on Sunday night. We immediately threw the proverbial kitchen sink into that area. It was in the area of 90th Street and Jomax. We threw everything that we had at that. Patrol resources, detective resources, folks from my investigative services bureau. We threw everything we had at it. We started drone operations in the area. We started to get a helicopter from Mesa and from DPS overhead. And ultimately, we got those air assets within a period of time. I also want to give a shout out when I talk about partnerships and technology. The partnership component of that is we received that technology alert at about 8 o'clock. So we started throwing everything we had at it. Shout out to the security staff at Desert Highlands, because they too, shortly after we received an alert on one of our platforms, they too received an alert on one of their technology platforms, one of their cameras, and then got that information to us. What that does for us is that confirms that information that we already had and started responding to. So shout out to them for what they've done to try to target harden their community as well. And so we threw a lot of resources at that. Upon getting to that area, one of my detective sergeants made a traffic stop of a suspicious vehicle in the area. And during that traffic stop, the driver presented a Chilean passport. Sorry, folks, but in my line of work, we'd call that a clue. That she had identified herself with a Chilean passport. Under questioning right at the scene, she admitted to dropping off 2 of her compatriots to do burglaries in the area. And so we knew that between the initial hit that we had on one of our platforms and the secondary hit that the Desert Highlands security staff had on one of their platforms, and her admissions to what they were doing, we knew that we had a Chilean burglary crew in the general area, and we threw everything that we had at it. Over a period of time, beginning about 8:30, 8:45 that night, we threw every asset that we had at it, in the air, on the ground, drones, helicopters, and as you know, big open space like that, you can hide just about anywhere. Even with the advanced capabilities that we have on some of our cameras, you can hide anywhere. And they did. And we ended our operations to try to find them and apprehend them at about 3 a.m. We closed everything down. Everybody went home. We have obviously our patrol folks still out. And then at a little after 5 a.m., a separate platform operated by Scottsdale PD hit and identified both suspects in the desert as well, coming out of the desert, and immediately we started this all over again. And we put a lot of resources into the area. We started drone operations, and we had DPS Ranger air crew in support of those operations. And in short order, at about 6:30 in the morning, yesterday morning, that's how we're in the infancy of this, my patrol folks took both suspects into custody after DPS Ranger identified 2 heat signatures under a tree. And so we took both of those suspects into custody. I will tell you that the investigation really just started there. And if you think about it, once we take somebody into custody, that's really when the investigation starts. And so I know that a lot of your questions are going to be their level of involvement, and were they involved in the Saturday night completed burglary and the attempted burglary? We believe yes, although we're now working hard to confirm that with a lot of different technological components and interviews. I will tell you that the 3 suspects taken into custody, an adult female, an adult male, and a juvenile male, 17 years old. The suspects are a female who's 32, a male who's 23, and a juvenile who's 17. I will share with you that both adults have already, during questioning, admitted that that's exactly what they were in Scottsdale to do residential burglaries. They also admitted really an interstate connection that I think is important, and we talk about our FBI partnerships here locally in the Valley, which are tremendous. And a shout out to Special Agent in Charge Akil Davis, who obviously offers he and his staff and all the resources that we may need to continue to follow these groups. And so partnerships, right? Technology. We'll tell you that during questioning, again, not only did they admit to why they were here, they also admitted to that, like I said, that interstate component of that, and that they'd been doing burglaries in the state of California. And then we reached out and got some information through LAPD and the FBI office in LA related to a news article about the 17-year-old juvenile who had been arrested by LAPD, but because he was a juvenile, he was moved over to what we would refer to as the Department of Child Services in California, and then he promptly walked away. The article ended, ironically, with the fact that his whereabouts were unknown. We know where they are, because now he's at a juvenile facility operated by the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office until he has his initial appearance. So other questions that we'll get, since they admitted that that's what they were doing, is do we have evidence of where they were staying? We knew where they were staying at least up until midday on Sunday. It was a motel in Mesa, but they've checked out of, and we're now looking for where they were staying, where they were going to go to after they've committed their crimes. And so we're still working on that as well. Property. So was there any property taken? And so or found in their vehicle? What we did find was, ironically enough, for the juvenile, we found his court documentation from his crimes that he committed in California and before fleeing to Arizona. We did find also some property in there that we're trying to connect to other burglaries, but wasn't a lot. So we know that there's likely property elsewhere, and we're working hard to discover those locations as well. So that's, as this progresses, and mind you, the 2 arrests yesterday were at 6:30 in the morning. So we're sitting at a little bit more than 24 hours since we took those 2 into custody. A lot of work done to really get to this point today to share this information with you. I'm happy to report to you that another partner in this is Rachel Mitchell in the Maricopa County Attorney's Office. And I'll tell you that both adults have been arraigned, and a $200,000 cash bond has been applied to both of those suspects. We'll see later today about holding the juvenile and under what circumstances. This is, I go back to the beginning, right? This is all about partnerships for me and the technology that we bring to bear. And so those partnerships for my fellow police agencies to the federal, my federal partners, be it the FBI or the ATF or the Marshals or the Secret Service, we have great relationships here in the Valley to really work these cases together. And then the partnerships that we have with the community to stay vigilant. That commitment that we made to each other at the town hall was about being vigilant. And a question will come up of, okay, Chief, you have these 3 that are in custody. Do we still have to be vigilant? And the answer is yes, we have to be vigilant. Then your next question should be why, right? We have these in custody. Phoenix took 3 into custody, and we saw a lull after Phoenix made an arrest of the 3 that they have in custody. And Rachel Mitchell applying a high cash bond to those suspects as well, so they're still in custody. And these in Scottsdale will also still be in custody. But we have to remain vigilant because there are more. I challenge anybody watching who will watch this to just Google search Chilean burglary series or South American theft groups, and you will see from the Northeast to the Southwest to Middle America to the Southwest to the Northwest and to the coast of California, you're going to see these groups impacting so many communities. We have to ask each other, what are we going to do about it? And so I put that out there. This is, we know from information that we gleaned, because questions always come up, is where did they come from? Did they come across the southern border? Or did they come through the visa waiver program? And I will tell you right now, we know for certainty, and information we've gathered, all 3. All 3 came here legally on the visa waiver program. That's how the Chilean nationals are coming in, these burglary crews are coming in. Now, I don't need more email in my inbox saying not all Chileans are coming to the United States on this 90-day tourist program. Not all of them are committing crimes. You're absolutely right, they're not, and I'm not saying that they are, but what we're getting is hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, coming in through the visa waiver program that are committing residential burglaries in dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of cities and neighborhoods around the country. This is not a Scottsdale issue. This is not a Valley issue. This is not an Arizona issue. This is a national issue. And so we have to be willing to start asking some hard questions of our federal government about the visa waiver program, in addition to the hard questions we should be asking about what's going on the southern border, and that 50% of all fentanyl coming into the United States is crossing the Arizona-Mexico border. With that, I'm happy to take your questions if I didn't answer them already. And again, I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you being here and you participating in the narrative.
Chief, thanks for your time.
Any partnership with federal immigration officials, since this is people with the visa waiver program, in terms of these arrests?
I will tell you that we've had some conversations with Homeland Security investigations, with ICE, to further this discussion more and see if we can't get a little bit of traction, because that's all I'm asking for. I'm not asking for a hard change overnight. I'm asking for a little bit of traction to see if we can at least find a mechanism to slow the flow of crime tourists. And the very fact that we have a phrase for this, crime tourism, that you can come to the United States for a maximum of 90 days and see the wonderful country that we are, but that so many are abusing the visa waiver program as crime tourists, that in and of itself is a problem. So we're going to continue to work that angle.
Any boots on the ground, any resources, or would they typically, in a situation like this, where criminals are using that visa waiver program to?
Not so far, no, not so far.
That they would?
No. Ultimately, what happens is, and this will go down a pretty extensive rabbit hole, is, and you'll sense my frustration and the frustration of my patrol folks and my detectives who've been working tireless hours on surveillance details, in addition to all the other cases that they're working, that other than our local partners propping each other up, right, and our local federal connections with the FBI and ATF and the others that I've mentioned already, we feel alone. We're on our own here. It's like, hey, we know this is going on. We know how much fentanyl is pouring across the border. We know that this is happening with the visa waiver program, but fix it yourself. That's a conversation that we need to have on a much larger scale, so that we come together and say, how can we work this problem together?
Chief, I know that you said at this point you're still trying to figure out how many burglaries that these particular individuals were involved in. Do you have an estimate of how many that they might have been involved?
Yeah, terrific question. We don't at the moment because during a lot of the questioning, we're going to get with suspects, honestly, and some of you have this with your children. We're going to get deny, deflect, levy, counter accusations, right? And so that is how we start out. And so we're very fortunate already that we have admissions that that's what they were doing. Now, we believe, and we have some evidence to support, that they are the suspects in our Saturday night completed burglary and the attempt, but we don't have all the evidence we need yet, and that's going to take us a little bit of time to cultivate that, to find them responsible for those crimes as well.
Do you know how long that they have been here?
Well, I know that, so I can tell you that having just recently got the information on their visa waiver program, I will tell you that the adult male has overextended his stay. He's here longer than the 90 days. But the juvenile and the adult female are both within their 90-day window, and we know from their own admissions that they came from California where they were doing this as well.
Chief, do you know how many other crews are working in the area?
I wish. I wish that that way I knew that when like in a whack-a-mole game, that way I knew how many I was going after. The sad fact is I don't. We know of the two that we've had, the three that we arrested, the three that Phoenix arrested, and I can tell you with I believe with some certainty that there are a number of other crews that are working the Valley. I did have a hope and an expectation that when Phoenix made their arrest of their three, and then we had an exceptionally unheard of, well-attended town hall with more than 3,000 people in person and online, that sent a chilling effect. Right? It sent a chilling effect in terms of how transparent we were. I did get a question in that town hall about, Chief, aren't you afraid that when you talk about you're doing surveillance or you're putting up technology platforms that the bad guys are going to know? And I said at that one, I want them to know. I want them to know what we're doing because I want to catch them, and B, if I can't catch them, I know this is terrible. You want to displace them, at least displace them, so you have more eyes in other jurisdictions looking at these same suspects. So the number, I don't know. It's more than two. It's more than two the two crews that we've taken into custody. Time will tell because sadly, and that's why I talk about vigilance, I want our community, our entire Valley community, to remain vigilant, especially if you back up to open space or close to open space, a golf course, a wash, a desert area, because I think there are more. I'm hoping that this second arrest and Rachel Mitchell's high cash bond amounts, that will deter crews from continuing to work the Phoenix metropolitan area.
Thank you so much, Chief, for having us here today and working on this. In respect to the question you mentioned, that these are professionals. These are not just folks trying to fuel an addiction or anything. When you went to the motel where they were staying, there was some property there. Is there any kind of knowledge as to where the rest of the property or anything
Sure.
might be at this?
I appreciate that. So the Mesa location that they were staying at, they checked out of the day before. So we are on the lookout. We're trying to find where were they going to bed down on Sunday night, because they checked out, and it's just, let's be honest with each other. They're practicing good operational security. That's what they're doing. They're in one location. Okay, now I'm going to check out of this location. We're going to do more burglaries tonight, and then we're going to land in a separate location, right? It's good. When I say that they're professionals, I don't want you to think that I'm applauding their skill level, but they are professionals. That's what they do. This is their full-time job, and they're very, very good at it. And so we're still trying to identify exactly where their bed-down location was going to be Sunday night. We did find some small amount of evidence in their vehicle. And so that's what we're trying to connect. We're bringing in some of our victims to say, hey, any of these small items that we find, are they yours, so that we can tie them to that. The other thing we need to look at, and I'll answer a question that's probably going to come from you already, is what did they have on their person, right? The two that we took into custody, what did they have on them? Because usually what we've seen on cameras before is that they leave a residence after committing a burglary and they have some sort of backpack on, right? And when we took them into custody, no backpack. And so, but they had that time period from about 8 o'clock at night on Sunday night till about 6:30 in the morning to bed down that entire time and either hide or bury or dispose of whatever materials they had in their backpacks, including a question that might come up is what we talked about in the town hall is the cell phone signal jammer that they've been using to defeat cell phones and Wi-Fi systems for burglar alarms, right? So we don't know. So we are literally looking for that in the desert, looking for potentially, now talk about finding a needle in a stack of needles. Doesn't mean we're not gonna break our backs trying.
Any evidence that anything was sold?
No, not that we have right now.
Chief, surely the difference between, this is such a high-profile case, everyone's reading the headlines, Chilean this, Chilean that. Surely there's a difference between vigilance and profiling. Is there any messages that you want to send to?
Of course. I think that's a great question. And so what I'll get is when we made a traffic stop on that particular vehicle, ironically, my burglary sergeant, who's very tenacious, made that stop. Kudos to him for making a great stop and recognizing coming into the neighborhood a very suspicious vehicle, driving around, slowing down, clearly looking for somebody, and then pulling over before we even made it. So a lot of suspicious behavior, and then make that traffic stop. And so it's always very important to talk about how we operate as a law enforcement agency, and that racial profiling under any circumstances is not acceptable. But there is a difference between racial profiling and criminal profiling. And so criminal profiling really is a set of circumstances that you start checking off, almost like a checkbox of, is this potentially my suspect? And now have I given myself reasonable suspicion to make a traffic stop? And that's exactly what he did, of checking off the criminal profiling checkboxes. But you're 100% correct. And at no time ever will it be acceptable to, yes, we know that they're largely Chilean burglary crews. The intelligence has proved that out for us over and over again. But we need to make stops and contact people based on a set of circumstances that lead us to believe that that person is involved in the crime. So great question. Thank you.
Chief, what are they doing with are they thinking about?
Yeah, so I talk about this in the town hall meeting. Really, they're extremely agile, very mobile, and they're looking only for very few things, right? They're looking for cash. And typically, they're only hitting the master bedroom and the master bathroom. So if you think you're hiding your stuff in the master bathroom and in the cupboards, no, they're going through that too. So really, it's four primary things. It's cash, right? Cash first and foremost, easy to move. It's non-serialized jewelry, and what I mean by that is Rolex will give a serial number to all of their watches. So they're not interested in things that have a serial number that can be tracked. Cash, non-serialized jewelry, precious metals. There are a lot of folks who, the economy is since the Great Recession, they're holding on to silver and gold ingots, and so those things, those are easily movable, easily sellable. And this one threw me for a while, I'll be honest with you. High-end purses, belts, leather goods, things that can be moved that are very high-end. And so high-end purses seem to be extremely popular and are easily moved. What are they doing with it? What we believe we're doing through arrests we made in 2019, arrests we made in 2022, is that they're taking their ill-gotten gains, they're boxing it up, and they're shipping it to Chile. So where they can then move it. Now, is there probably some illegal fencing of some of that material here, some of that stuff here? Probably. But what we're seeing is them sending that to Chile.
Based on this, do you have any recommendation for the community, since you're saying there might still be some
Yeah.
out there?
Yeah. Thank you for that, because really when we talk about that commitment to each other and that connectivity, I still want to continue to push that commitment to look out for each other. It's how we stopped it on Saturday night. It was somebody who said, hey, I see two people that, at dark, now in the desert, and it's start yelling at them. They were gone, right? There has to be that level of vigilance. And I'm not talking about hyper-vigilance. With hypervigilance, you burn out eventually, and that's like having no vigilance at all. It's just being aware of what's going on around your home, what's taking place in the open space, cars that are going by your residence multiple times. It's just having the same level of vigilance that I want you to have, and I want you to have in the Fashion Square parking lot. It's the same vigilance I want you to have when you're out and about in public, because I think that there's a veil of civilization here that often gets broken, and it's important that you recognize that if you're vigilant, if you're just paying attention to your surroundings, then you will often, more often than not, you will not find yourself as a victim. And so that vigilance, that cautious vigilance about what's going on in your surroundings, I think is really important. And so that's really all I'm asking, and that you partner with each other. You stay connected to your community, and you stay connected to the Scottsdale Police Department. Call us. We're going to come out if you think something's odd.
I have two questions for you, Chief.
I have one answer.
First question, I can only imagine the number of resources and hours that your department has put in. Do you have any number?
It's a lot. I will tell you, honestly, I want to say it's tongue-in-cheek, but honestly, I have an amazing finance and budget section in the PD, and prior to this wave, we said, hey, I think we're gonna come in, and we're projecting to come in at about $500,000 under, my boss is watching now, the city manager, under our overtime budget. Yeah, not anymore. Not anymore. I might need a little extra money from him. So we are putting a lot of resources on this. Money is not the question. It's really about the sanctity, safety, and security of our community. And the larger community, if you get nothing else out of this is not a Scottsdale problem, just a Scottsdale problem. This is a valley-wide problem, a statewide problem, and a nationwide problem that we collectively need to work on to address. So yeah, we're throwing a lot of dollars at it and a lot of personnel. The worry for me is burnout. My entire, and I have a large investigations bureau, they're getting tired. They're getting tired.
I also heard you've talked a lot about vigilance. You've also talked that you had hoped that this would kind of stop after Phoenix made their arrests and you made your arrests. What kind of comfort or not comfort do you find, or peace of mind or not peace of mind, do you find in these arrests?
Well, the comfort that I find in that is, number one, is that we took a predatory burglary crew off the streets. That's important. Number two, there's comfort in that connectivity with the community. When the community will recognize, not just the Scottsdale community, but the Valley community, that Phoenix made an arrest that impacts Phoenix and the rest of the Valley, that we've now made an arrest that impacts Scottsdale and the rest of the Valley. Moreover, I think it really should be comforting that the intelligence apparatus that we've all built, and I know we don't like that thought process, but all law enforcement agencies, local, federal, state, have to build an intelligence apparatus that says, here's who we believe are coming in and doing these crimes. Here's where they're coming from. Here's what they're taking. Here's what they're doing with it. And so this intelligence apparatus that we've built, there's comfort in knowing that we're right, that the intelligence is accurate. And it's been accurate over and over and over and over again, to your question, so that we're not stopping the wrong people. We're not criminally profiling the wrong people. We should never be racially profiling, but we're not criminally profiling. So criminally profiling the wrong people. So the intelligence speaks to both your question and really works on preventing that. So we take some comfort and solace in that, and the idea of your question about remaining vigilant, right? The other thing we're going to take out of this, and I want the community to take out of this, is it doesn't matter how tired my folks are, they still want to work the problem. That's important, and those are the employees that you have in police departments across this valley and across this state, is that no matter how tired they are, they're still going to work the problem in an effort to prevent this from happening to additional people.
Chief, were any of these people armed? Any reason to suspect that?
They were not. They were not armed. It has been, again, I talked about intelligence. It's been our experience that these Chilean burglary crews stay completely away from firearms. They don't bring firearms into the equation, and they don't take firearms, even if they're in plain view. We have had a case where a small safe was stolen, and we recovered that safe, and that safe had been pried, and the 2 guns that were in that safe were left right there with the empty safe now. So they don't typically, I guess things could change, but our intelligence and our actual experience are telling us that they're not taking guns and they're not bringing guns.
I know it's still very early, but you mentioned these 2 suspects admitting to what they were doing. So far, have you been able to glean any new information about the operation just from talking to these folks?
No, we haven't. It has, I hate to use this, but it has checked all of the boxes that we have from prior burglaries, from prior crews being arrested, even in our own city. Like I said, we made arrests in 2019 and 2022 of crews burglarizing homes and businesses in Scottsdale, and it checks all those same boxes.
Is there any evidence that that they were more than co-conspirators? Any type of familiar relationship between these suspects?
We have not identified a familial relationship between these 3. They are obviously connected. They are a crew together, but no familial contact that we know of.
Do you know if that 17-year-old is looking at being charged as an adult?
You know, I often fire from the hip, right? And I'm like, I hope so. But we don't know. We don't know. We know that according to him, and mind you, it's proving what's the real age, right? I mean, we did find a passport that you would think would confirm his age, and so we know that he'll turn 18 this year.
What do you need now?
I just continue to need everybody just working together on this. Again, I can't say enough about the partnerships that I have with the community, with our residents, with my local partners and police departments who immediately, and this is what's great about this, is that you have police departments who, when we call and say, hey, we have burglars we know in the desert, they're sending air units here, or we're sending our people there. When Phoenix made their arrests, we had a surveillance package out that night, a detail out that night, and we were immediately sending our folks in their direction and toward Paradise Valley, who's another amazing partner, because they had burglaries the same night that the Phoenix crew was taken into custody. And so we're sharing this information. I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but in the same way of the WM Phoenix Open and how many resources come to Scottsdale to really manage that large event. And so that's an amazing relationship when you throw resources at each other to help resolve and solve some of these crimes.
Chief, being part of the Spanish TV station, the probability of these burglars watching this news is pretty high. Any message for them?
I'm sorry, who watching?
Well, anybody that's doing this, any other.
Yeah, any other crews watching this, right? Yeah, get out of Arizona. Honestly, it is. I would love to say, my goodness, come to this country and enjoy this country and the beauty that it is, and the diversity and the culture, and it's an amazing place. But far too many are coming here to commit crimes, to commit burglaries, and so that's something that we need to address. I think that's something that we can address in the community. There is, I think, a large Hispanic contingent or Chilean contingent here in the United States. Let's have a discussion about that. Let's come together and say, how can we work on this problem together to resolve this problem without violence, without further loss of property? And so I think that there needs to be a lot of discussions. And I think I've mentioned a couple discussion points in here, whether it be with the Spanish-speaking community or the Chileans who are here in this country, or others from South America, to have those hard conversations, to provide information on some of these crews in the same way that we need to have a national conversation. I don't mean the lip service that we see regularly. I mean a true conversation about the visa waiver program, the ESTA program, about the amount of fentanyl that's coming across our border, why and how, and the reasons behind that. Just a discussion with some action to follow, because ultimately, I don't think we're doing a great job. I don't think we're doing a great job on the federal level of adhering to the idea in the Constitution that they're responsible for national defense. National defense is important, right? And a part of national defense is protecting your citizenry from those who would come to this country and commit crimes. And so I know that's not a discussion that a lot of police chiefs want to have. And there's no indictment. I'm not suggesting that any indictment. I certainly could not, but we need to have a conversation about these programs and about Arizona being literally ground zero, the epicenter for a lot of this crime activity. And so, especially related to fentanyl. Rachel Mitchell and I, the county attorney, were at a fentanyl forum last week talking about the amount of fentanyl coming into this country. And so we have to, these two, they might not seem like it, but they are connected to one another. And it really is about the land of the free and coming to the land of the free to commit your crimes. And so we need to have some discourse, some civil discourse on that. One more, if we didn't talk them all out.
They're not coming here and walking across the border, right? They're not coming across illegally.
Right.
They're flying.
Yeah, great point. So yes, the crews that we're talking about from South America or from Chile in particular are flying here legally on the visa waiver program, and so it's referred to as ESTA, the electronic system for travel authorization. Right.
So the border problem not really apply. Because they're.
How long did you want to spend here? Because yes and no. So right, these crews are coming to the United States legally in a flawed, absolutely 100% flawed visa waiver program. That's how they're coming here. Now a lot of them are extending beyond the 90 days that they're allowed to be here. The border issue is a separate issue that comes together and ahead as making Arizona as ground zero for both of these issues, including the fentanyl. We can argue about the porous border all day long, but when you recognize statistics from the DEA that really look at almost 50% of fentanyl coming into this country comes through the Arizona-Mexico border, that is a problem. And so we could collectively have conversation about both sides of this equation and what are we doing to enhance the level of safety and security for the people who live in this country. Thanks again. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you participating in the narrative, and hopefully it's not 3 weeks before we see each other again.